Here with us now is Chad Wolf, former acting Homeland Security Secretary and Executive Vice President of the America First Policy Institute. Good to see you. Well, what do you think of those numbers?
Well, look, the numbers that we've seen on that southern border as far as record low apprehension numbers are just, dramatic. I don't think anyone thought that the administration could make that much progress in such little time. So they've done a tremendous amount of work. There's more work to be done, obviously. And now, obviously, they're moving on to removing individuals from the country. And some of the stats that you just put up there talk about removing and repatriating individuals back to their home countries, those individuals that don't have a legal right to be here in the United States.
Right. Trump ran on deporting the worst of the worst, as we know, migrants in the country. How do you account for the data, though, showing that a majority of people in ICE custody don't have a criminal conviction? Isn't there some kind of check that can be done?
Well, let's be clear about this. The administration for 6 or 7 months now has said they will continue to prioritize the worst of the worst, right? Go after those that are criminals, criminal convictions and the like. But that does not mean that you simply ignore everyone else. You can still remove other individuals and still prioritize. Both of these things can be done at the same time, which is what the Trump administration is doing. I think once you decide and you state publicly that I'm only going to remove this section of individuals or this subset of individuals, then you have what we had during 4 years of President Biden, an absolute disaster, because the cartels and others know that if you're a child or if you're this type of an adult that has no criminal history, you won't get removed. Well, guess who starts streaming across that border in numbers that we can't deal with? So it's very clear that you need to enforce the law. You need to prioritize the worst of the worst, but that you're not exempting anyone. You're not exempting anyone from the law.
Right, and it's a big net, right? So you do a big net, and that's where you're going to get in the worst of the worst, presumably. Blake Berman asked Secretary Noem about the administration's approach to migrant farm workers. This is a huge story that we've been following. Here's what she said.
If people are here in this country illegally, I go home. I mean, the law is the law, and we are upholding the law. And the president is very clear that he doesn't believe that the law should apply to some people and not to others, and that there should be consequences for some people and not for others.
Look, some would say it's just not that easy. There's been some back and forth on the policy overall. Do you have any insight into those discussions and where they ended up? Because people are trying to figure out how this is going to play out.
Well, I don't. I mean, I agree with the secretary, which is you need to enforce the law. Anytime you start exempting industries or certain segments of the economy from enforcement, you're going to have a big problem. I haven't seen any data that says that any one industry is being targeted in such large numbers that it's going to shut it down. I think there's a concern there over a period of time, certainly. But look, there's an H-2A program, there's an H-2B program, both for ag. One is for ag workers and the other is seasonal. One is uncapped, right, for ag workers that can come into the country, be vetted, they can work on farms, they can work elsewhere. Unlimited number of those visas. We need more people coming in legally and being vetted versus allowing individuals to come into the country illegally, work here, and then somehow say, well, it's okay because we really, really need you. That does not dismiss the national security concerns of having folks in the country illegally.
Yeah, coming in and figuring it out later is how some of this has gone. There is a new bipartisan bill called the Dignity Act. We talked about this last hour, which would provide temporary legal status for some undocumented immigrants. Now, earlier, one of the authors, Republican Congresswoman Maria Salazar, told me how it would work.
I call it a Solomonic solution. It's like you break the baby into two. There's no path to citizenship, no amnesty, but you bring those people out of the shadows. We're talking about 10 million people plus who work basically in construction, hospitality, and agricultural sectors. They're needed for the economy, and they do not have a criminal record.
Okay, so what do you think about her plan?
Well, I don't know. I haven't read the bill. It's the first time I've heard of it. But I'm not in favor of simply dismissing or somehow legalizing the fact that you came into the country illegally, you've stayed here illegally, you've worked here illegally, and now you want to, wave a wand and have legal status of some kind. I think a lot of Americans would say that's just simply not fair. That's not how The majority of immigrants come into the United States. We need to do this legally. We need to do this orderly. And I think that's the system we need to devise, not simply waving a wand and saying, oh, it's okay that you did all this stuff illegally, but we really need you.
And Chad, I got to ask you about this wild case out of Louisiana. 3 police chiefs, I hope you've heard about this, because 3 police chiefs have been charged in an alleged visa fraud scheme. They're accused of taking bribes in exchange for filing false police reports to keep migrants in the country. So this is a real story. Those are real allegations and real arrests. What's your reaction?
Well, look, if those allegations are true, obviously, you know, there needs to be consequences. Whether it doesn't matter. Look, if you're a law enforcement officer and you break the law, you got to have consequences to it. So again, I'm not sure about this specific case, but again, if those allegations are true, they need to be held accountable. It's not right to do that, whether you're a law enforcement officer or you're not. And particularly if you're a law enforcement officer, obviously you've sworn allegiance. You've taken an oath. You have a certain set of responsibilities. And I said this during my time at the Department of Homeland Security, which is I support law enforcement. They are patriots. But but if you have folks that misstep and do some things that they shouldn't do, certainly break the law, you need to make sure that there's accountability.
Right. I mean, 3 chiefs. I mean, this is going to be a wild one to watch for sure. Chad Wolf, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for being here. And coming up, more on today's